Have you ever felt that strange emptiness, that quiet longing for something you can't quite name? That feeling in the pit of your stomach when you look up at the night sky and suddenly feel both infinitely small and somehow connected to everything? There's a reason for that. In our modern world of constant distraction, we've forgotten something essential. Not misplaced it, but truly forgotten. Your soul has never abandoned you. You've simply forgotten it exists. The disconnection we feel, that peculiar modern ailment where despite all our technological connection, we feel profoundly alone, stems from this fundamental forgetting. This spiritual amnesia wasn't sudden. It happened gradually, like the slow dimming of a light so imperceptible you don't notice the darkness until you can barely see. Raymond Moody's decades of research into near-death experiences reveal a profound truth. Those who briefly cross the threshold between life and death often return with an unshakable awareness of their soul's reality. They speak of remembering something they had always known but somehow forgot during their earthly journey. This pattern appears across cultures, backgrounds, and belief systems. The experience of remembering what was forgotten. Think about it. How strange that we need to come so close to death to remember the most fundamental truth about our existence. The soul doesn't leave. Awareness of it simply gets buried under the noise of daily living. Consider how a child perceives the world with wonder, presence, and an intuitive sense of connection to everything. Children often speak of memories from before, of spiritual insights that seem impossible for their young minds to have constructed. Gradually, as we age, we're taught to dismiss these whispers from our soul as mere imagination. We learn to value only what can be measured, quantified, verified by our physical senses. The education necessary for functioning in society simultaneously educates us out of our soul awareness. This isn't a conspiracy, but simply the natural consequence of learning to navigate a material world. The symptoms of this soul forgetting manifest everywhere in our modern lives. The unprecedented rates of anxiety, depression, and the persistent feeling that something is missing, even when all material needs are met. The endless consumption that never satisfies. The existential crises that seem to arrive earlier and earlier in life. The frantic search for meaning in achievement, recognition, relationships, or substances. These are all echoes of the soul trying to be remembered. They are not pathologies but urgent messages from the deepest part of ourselves, saying, "Remember, me, I am still here." What's most remarkable about this forgetting is how complete it becomes. We don't merely ignore our souls, we forget they exist at all. We construct elaborate philosophies explaining human existence without any reference to the soul. We reduce consciousness to mere brain function, love to biochemistry, spiritual experiences to neurological anomalies. And yet the soul persists, patiently waiting to be rediscovered, occasionally sending signals through dreams, synchronicities, moments of profound beauty, or inexplicable knowing. Moody's research shows that this forgetting might serve a purpose. Perhaps we need to forget temporarily to fully appreciate remembering. Those who have near-death experiences often describe their journey as remembering who they truly are, like awakening from a dream where they had forgotten their true identity. They describe the sensation as one of homecoming, of profound recognition, not of learning something new, but of remembering something eternally known. This suggests that on some level, the soul understands this forgetting as part of the human journey, not a mistake or failure. The ancients knew about this forgetting. Plato described learning as an amnesis, the removal of forgetfulness. He suggested that our souls possessed complete knowledge before birth, and education was simply the process of remembering what we already knew. Indigenous traditions worldwide contain practices designed specifically to maintain connection with the soul, despite the pull of material existence. Even the word remember itself offers a clue. To remember is to put back together what has been dismembered, to restore wholeness to what has been fragmented. In our technological age, this forgetting has accelerated. The constant stimulation, the ceaseless input, the relentless distractions, all conspire to drown out the quiet voice of the soul. We've created a world where silence has become uncomfortable, where being alone with our thoughts feels like punishment rather than opportunity. The soul speaks in whispers, in the spaces between thoughts, in moments of quiet contemplation. Precisely the experiences our modern lifestyle eliminates. We fill every moment with noise, every silence with distraction, unknowingly building impenetrable barriers between our conscious awareness and our eternal soul. Yet despite everything, despite all our determined forgetting, the soul never leaves. It remains, patiently waiting, occasionally sending signals through the noise. Those inexplicable moments of deep knowing, those tears that come when witnessing something beautiful, those profound connections with others that transcend explanation. The soul waits, neither judging nor abandoning, for the moment when we might remember again. Your soul speaks to you in countless ways, even when you've forgotten how to listen. Those moments when a song brings unexpected tears to your eyes, that's your soul. The strange familiarity you feel with certain places you've never visited. Your soul remembers. The inexplicable knowing that guides you toward or away from certain paths. Your soul communicating. According to Raymond Moody's extensive research, these aren't random occurrences but deliberate messages from the most authentic part of yourself, the part that never forgets, even when your conscious mind has lost the ability to hear. Dreams offer perhaps the most direct communication channel. Those vivid dreams that stay with you for days, containing symbols and emotions that feel pregnant with meaning. These are often your soul's attempt to bypass the rational mind and speak directly to your consciousness. Jung called these big dreams, distinguishing them from the mind's nightly processing of daily events. These dreams often contain universal symbols that appear across cultures and time periods, what Jung termed archetypes, suggesting they originate from something deeper than personal experience. Moody noted that people who've had near-death experiences frequently report enhanced dream states afterward, as if the veil between conscious awareness and soul knowledge had thinned. Synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences that defy statistical explanation, serve as another signal. When you think of someone for the first time in years and they call moments later, when you repeatedly encounter the same unusual symbol or number pattern, when the perfect book falls from a shelf as you pass by, containing exactly the wisdom you need. These aren't random events, but carefully orchestrated moments of potential awakening. Your soul arranging breadcrumbs on the path back to remembrance. Intuitive flashes, that immediate knowing without rational explanation, represent your soul's wisdom bypassing the slower analytical mind. Research into intuitive decision-making consistently shows that experts in various fields make their best decisions not through step-by-step analysis, but through rapid pattern recognition that occurs below conscious awareness. This suggests our deepest knowing doesn't come from accumulated facts, but from a more fundamental connection to truth. Those who've had near-death experiences often report enhanced intuitive abilities afterward, as if their soul connection had been strengthened by proximity to death. The phenomenon of déjà vu, that strange feeling of having experienced something before, might represent moments when the eternal part of us briefly recognizes something from beyond time. While conventional science attributes déjà vu to neurological misfiring, those who've had profound spiritual experiences often describe it differently, as moments when the veil between ordinary consciousness and soul awareness temporarily thins. Consider how often déjà vu arrives with an accompanying emotional resonance, a feeling not just of recognition but of significance. Even physical sensations can be messages from the soul. The chills down your spine when hearing certain music, the expansive feeling in your chest during moments of profound beauty, the sudden welling of emotion when witnessing acts of compassion. These bodily responses represent the soul's attempt to communicate through the most immediate language available, sensation itself. The body becomes the instrument through which the soul plays its music, if only we would learn to interpret these sensations as the language they are. Perhaps most telling is the persistent yearning so many experience, the feeling that something essential is missing despite having all physical needs met. This isn't a sign of psychological maladjustment, but the soul's healthy response to disconnection. Like hunger signals the need for food, this spiritual hunger signals the need for reconnection with our deepest nature. The materialist paradigm attempts to fill this hunger with possessions, achievements, or relationships. But as millions discover, these offer only temporary relief from the fundamental longing for soul recognition. Moody's research with thousands who've approached death's threshold reveals a consistent pattern. When death appears imminent, the soul's presence becomes undeniable. The veil of forgetting lifts. What's most remarkable is how this remembering feels to those who experience it, not like discovering something new, but like remembering something always known but temporarily forgotten. They describe it as coming home to myself, or remembering who I really am. This suggests the soul's presence isn't something we need to create or find, but simply remember. It has been there all along, waiting patiently for our recognition. These signals grow stronger during life's transitions and challenges. Moments of profound loss often trigger soul awakening precisely because they strip away the distractions and certainties that maintained forgetting. When a relationship ends, when health fails, when a loved one dies, these moments crack open the edifice of our constructed identities and allow soul wisdom to pour through. This explains why suffering, while never desirable, often catalyzes spiritual awakening. It's not that suffering itself is necessary, but rather that it disrupts the patterns that maintained our disconnection. What Raymond Moody discovered through decades of research into near-death experiences is that the forgetting of our soul nature appears to be a universal human condition, while remembering seems to be our natural trajectory. Every soul signal represents an invitation to remember, not intellectually, but experientially, the truth of who we are beyond our temporary identities, roles, and concerns. The soul never stops sending these invitations, even when we've forgotten how to recognize them. It waits with infinite patience for the moment when we might begin to listen again. Those who have experienced the precipice of death often return with an unshakable conviction. The soul isn't merely real, it's the most fundamental reality we possess. Raymond Moody's pioneering research into near-death experiences reveals a fascinating pattern. The closer we come to death, the more vividly we remember our spiritual nature. It's as if death dissolves the amnesia that kept us disconnected from our deepest essence. This awakening through proximity to death occurs across cultures, belief systems, and backgrounds, suggesting it reflects a universal human truth rather than culturally conditioned expectation. The near-death experience typically begins with a sudden shift in perspective, consciousness separating from identification with the physical body. This initial detachment often triggers profound relief, as if the soul has been liberated from a constricting container. Many report floating above their physical forms, observing medical personnel working to revive them with a curious detachment. What's remarkable is the consistent report of heightened awareness during these moments. Cognition becomes clearer, not dimmer, as brain function diminishes. This directly challenges the materialist assumption that consciousness is merely a product of brain activity. How could awareness increase as the brain shuts down, unless consciousness has a source beyond the physical? As the experience deepens, many report moving through a tunnel toward brilliant light, a light described not merely as brightness, but as conscious, intelligent presence radiating unconditional love. This light is frequently recognized as home, as the truth that has always existed beneath their temporary human identity. What's most telling is that this recognition doesn't feel like discovering something new, but remembering something always known, yet temporarily forgotten. The soul awakens to its own nature, to what it has always been beneath the accumulation of earthly concerns and identities. Perhaps the most transformative aspect of the near-death experience is the life review, a panoramic replay of one's entire existence but experienced from multiple perspectives simultaneously. Unlike ordinary memory, which views events solely from personal perspective, the life review shows each action along with its effects on others. A cruel word spoken in childhood is experienced both as the speaker and the wounded recipient. A small kindness forgotten by the conscious mind is revealed in its full rippling impact across other lives. This multidimensional awareness reveals the profound interconnection between all beings. That separation itself is the fundamental illusion. This life review occurs without judgment from any external authority. Instead, the soul itself becomes both witness and judge, measuring each action against the knowledge of interconnection and love that now feels self-evident. The most painful moments in this review aren't punishments, but opportunities for growth. seeing, with perfect clarity where one's actions aligned with or diverged from this deeper truth. Many return from this experience with an unshakable conviction that the purpose of life is learning to love more fully, not as an abstract concept but as the most practical action possible in a universe where separation is revealed as illusion. The boundary between life and death often reveals itself not as a wall, but as a permeable membrane, with consciousness flowing continuously between states. Many report encountering deceased loved ones during their journey, not as ghosts or memories, but as fully present conscious beings. These encounters possess a hyper-real quality that makes ordinary physical reality seem dreamlike by comparison. What's particularly evidential is when these experiences include verified information the person couldn't have known, such as meeting a deceased relative they didn't know existed, only to have family members confirm the details later. What happens physiologically during these experiences remains mysterious. Some occur during cardiac arrest when brain activity has ceased, precisely when consciousness should be impossible according to materialist understanding. Others happen during deep trauma or physiological crisis. What remains consistent is that brushing against death temporarily dissolves the veil of forgetting, allowing the soul to recognize itself. Like waking from a compelling dream, the soul remembers it's been dreaming the dream of separation. It recognizes that what seemed most real, the physical world and individual identity, was actually the illusion, while what seemed imaginary, the spiritual dimension, was the deeper reality. Most significantly, those who return from these experiences are transformed. Their fear of death diminishes or disappears entirely. Their values shift dramatically from material success toward compassion and spiritual growth. Many discover unusual sensitivities or abilities, heightened intuition, inexplicable knowings, increased empathy. These changes aren't temporary, but typically last a lifetime, suggesting a fundamental restructuring of identity rather than a transient emotional reaction. They return with the soul firmly remembered, even as they continue their human journey. What Raymond Moody found most compelling was how these experiences transcend the religious conditioning one might expect would shape them. Christians, Muslims, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, and atheists all report remarkably similar core experiences, though they might interpret them through different cultural or religious frameworks afterward. This universality suggests near-death experiences reveal something fundamental about human consciousness rather than culturally constructed expectations. The soul, it seems, exists beyond our beliefs about it. The question naturally arises, must we approach death to remember our souls? Must we wait for crisis to reawaken to our spiritual nature? The evidence suggests otherwise. Those who've had these experiences bring back practices and perspectives that can help all of us thin the veil between ordinary awareness and soul consciousness without requiring proximity to death. The wisdom gleaned from near-death experiences offers pathways for soul reconnection available to all of us. Meditation stands as perhaps the most direct route, the systematic quieting of the conscious mind to allow soul awareness to emerge. Those who practice meditation consistently report experiences remarkably similar to aspects of the near-death experience: expanded awareness, dissolution of boundaries, encounters with loving presence, access to wisdom beyond their ordinary knowing. The key difference is intensity rather than kind. Meditation offers gradual awakening, while near-death experiences deliver sudden remembrance. What meditation demonstrates is that the veil between ordinary consciousness and soul awareness is permeable in both directions. We needn't approach death for the soul to make itself known. We need only learn to still the noise that drowns out its ever-present voice. Nature offers another powerful pathway to soul reconnection. Studies consistently show that time spent in natural settings reduces stress hormones, lowers blood pressure, and improves mood, physical indicators of soul recognition. Beyond these measurable effects, many report profound spiritual experiences. In natural settings, moments of boundary dissolution, timelessness, and deep connection. Perhaps this explains why virtually all indigenous wisdom traditions incorporated time in nature as essential for spiritual wholeness. The natural world, operating by rhythms and cycles deeper than human invention, naturally entrains human consciousness back toward its essential nature. By temporarily stepping outside human-created environments, we create space for the soul to be remembered. Artistic expression, whether creating or deeply experiencing art, provides another avenue for soul recognition. The state of flow experienced by artists often parallels descriptions from near-death experiences: time distortion, heightened awareness, dissolution of separate self, access to knowledge beyond ordinary knowing. Great art has always served as a bridge between visible and invisible realities, between material existence and spiritual truth. This explains why music, visual art, dance, and poetry can trigger such profound emotional and spiritual responses. They briefly pierce the veil of forgetting, allowing soul recognition to flood through mundane awareness. Profound connection with others, what Martin Buber called I-thou relationships, similarly thins the boundary between ordinary consciousness and soul awareness. In moments of deep intimacy, whether romantic, familial, or friendship, we briefly experience the illusion of separation dissolving. We recognize something eternal in the other, and they in us. This explains why authentic connection proves so transformative. It's not merely psychological comfort, but spiritual recognition. The boundaries between souls become permeable, allowing each to recognize the other's true nature beneath temporary human identity. Service to others, particularly selfless service without expectation of recognition or reward, creates natural conditions for soul remembrance. When we temporarily set aside personal concerns to address another's needs, we step outside the confined identity of separate self. Those who regularly engage in such service report experiences parallel to near-death accounts: profound joy, expanded awareness, sense of purpose transcending individual concern. This suggests that compassionate action is not merely ethically sound, but spiritually aligned with our deepest nature. The soul recognizes itself in service because such actions align with its fundamental understanding of interconnection. Contemplative inquiry, the systematic examination of assumptions about reality, can likewise dissolve the barriers to soul recognition. Practices like self-inquiry or koan study intentionally destabilize the certainties that maintain forgetting. By questioning who we fundamentally are beneath accumulated identities and beliefs, we create space for direct recognition of our essential nature. Many spiritual traditions incorporate such inquiry precisely because it systematically dismantles the architecture of forgetting, allowing soul recognition to emerge naturally rather than through belief or doctrine. What all these pathways share is their capacity to temporarily quiet the narratives, preoccupations, and assumptions that maintain our forgetting. They create gaps in our usual stream of consciousness, spaces through which soul awareness can emerge. What's most remarkable is that this emergence feels not like acquiring something new, but recovering something always known. The consistent testimony from those who've had near-death experiences is that the world seen from soul awareness appears more real, more vibrant, and more meaningful than ordinary perception. This suggests that soul reconnection represents not escape from reality, but deeper immersion in it, seeing through illusion rather than creating new ones. Raymond Moody's research illuminates another crucial insight. Soul recognition doesn't require rejection of human experience, but rather its embrace from a wider perspective. Those transformed by near-death experiences don't typically withdraw from worldly engagement. They often become more fully engaged, but with dramatically shifted priorities and perspectives. They recognize that the soul doesn't abandon human experience, but rather infuses it with deeper meaning. The goal becomes not transcendence of humanity, but expression of soul nature through human form, bringing heaven to earth rather than escaping earth for heaven. What's particularly encouraging about Moody's findings is that small shifts in awareness can create profound changes in experience. We needn't achieve complete spiritual enlightenment or have dramatic near-death experiences to benefit from soul reconnection. Even momentary glimpses of our deeper nature can transform our relationship with life's challenges. When difficulties arise, as they inevitably do, viewing them from soul perspective reveals their role in our spiritual evolution, rather than their apparent threat to our temporary human comfort. This wider perspective doesn't eliminate suffering, but transforms our relationship with it, from meaningless affliction to meaningful growth. The research suggests that remembering the soul happens not all at once, but in layers, each recognition creating conditions for deeper awareness. Like clearing a path through overgrown forest, each moment of reconnection makes the next easier. What begins as occasional glimpses gradually becomes sustained awareness. The path becomes self-reinforcing. The more we remember our soul nature, the more naturally our thoughts, choices, and actions align with this deeper truth. The return to wholeness accelerates of its own momentum. When the soul remembers itself, everything transforms. Those who experience profound spiritual awakening through near-death experiences or other means describe not just philosophical shifts, but complete reorientations of identity and purpose. The personality remains. Individual preferences, talents, and quirks persist, but they're now recognized as expressions of something deeper rather than the foundation of identity. This integration represents not the soul's submission to human limitation, but human consciousness expanding to embrace its spiritual dimension. The result isn't the diminishment of humanity, but its completion, living as fully human and fully spiritual simultaneously, without conflict between these aspects. This transformation manifests most visibly in the dissolution of fear, particularly fear of death. Those who've glimpsed beyond the veil consistently report that death represents not annihilation, but transition. The physicist David Bohm described physical reality as the explicate order emerging from a deeper implicate order of potential. Those who've experienced soul recognition describe something similar. Physical existence as a temporary expression of consciousness rather than its source or limit. This understanding doesn't create detachment from life, but deeper engagement with it. Each moment recognized as precious and meaningful, precisely because it's temporary. The paradox becomes clear. Only by accepting life's transience can we fully inhabit its beauty. Priorities naturally realign when the soul is remembered. Acquisition, status, and external validation, the currencies of forgotten souls, lose their compelling power. Instead, the quality of presence brought to each moment, the depth of connection with others, and alignment with purpose emerge as the true measures of a life well lived. Many report that after soul reconnection, they can no longer force themselves to pursue goals that don't align with their deeper values, even when those goals would bring material reward or social approval. The soul, once remembered, demands congruence between inner truth and outer expression. Relationships transform through the lens of soul recognition. Others are no longer seen primarily as sources of validation, comfort, or fulfillment of needs, but as fellow souls temporarily wearing human form. This shift doesn't diminish human connection, but enriches it beyond measure, allowing us to love others not just for what they provide, but for who they fundamentally are. The soul recognizes itself in all beings, creating the foundation for genuine compassion, not as moral obligation, but as natural expression of recognized truth. We love others not because we should, but because we finally see them clearly. The experience of time fundamentally changes when viewed from soul awareness. Rather than a linear progression from past to future, time reveals itself as what physicists call the eternal now, the present moment as the only true reality, containing both past and future within it. Those reconnected with their soul nature report heightened presence, the ability to fully inhabit each moment rather than perpetually reaching towards some imagined future or ruminating on the past. This timeless quality of awareness doesn't negate practical planning, but infuses it with deeper perspective. Goals become expressions of purpose rather than attempts to complete a chronically deficient self. Perhaps most profound is the shift in relationship with suffering. From soul perspective, pain is recognized as real but temporary, while consciousness itself remains untouched at its deepest level. This doesn't create denial of human suffering, but compassionate witness of it, the capacity to fully acknowledge pain while simultaneously recognizing the eternal part of us that transcends it. Many who've had near-death experiences or other profound spiritual awakenings report that this shift alone transforms their capacity to navigate life's inevitable challenges with grace. Suffering remains, but suffering alone becomes impossible. There is always the witness beyond the experience. The meaning crisis that characterizes our age dissolves in the light of soul remembrance. The question, what's the point of it all, receives not an intellectual answer but an experiential one. Meaning emerges not from external validation or achievement but from alignment with our deepest nature. The soul doesn't need to create purpose. It recognizes purpose as intrinsic to existence itself. This represents perhaps the most profound healing possible in an age characterized by meaninglessness. The discovery that meaning isn't something we construct, but something we remember, something that has always been present beneath our forgetting. The capacity for joy expands exponentially when filtered through soul awareness. Joy becomes available not just in exceptional circumstances, but in ordinary moments. A child's laughter, sunlight through leaves, the taste of food, the gift of breath. This isn't naive positivity, but the recognition that existence itself, despite its inevitable challenges, represents an astonishing miracle. Many report that after soul reconnection, they find themselves moved to tears by simple experiences that previously passed unnoticed, not from sentimentality, but from direct perception of the extraordinary beauty inherent in ordinary life. And a key sense of being fundamentally alone, that existential isolation so characteristic of modern experience, dissolves through soul remembrance. We recognize not just intellectual, but felt connection with all life, with the universe itself. This represents healing of the deepest wound of being human, the illusion of separation from the source of life. Those who experience this reconnection describe it as coming home after a long journey, discovering that what they sought through endless external pursuits was waiting within them all along, patiently anticipating their return. Raymond Moody's decades of research reveal perhaps the most hopeful insight of all. The soul's capacity for reconnection remains available throughout the human journey, regardless of how complete the forgetting has been. The soul doesn't abandon us for failing to recognize it, doesn't punish us for forgetting, doesn't require special worthiness or achievement for reunion. It simply waits, with infinite patience, for the moment when our attention might turn toward it again. And in that turning, in that remembering, we discover what has always been true. The soul never left. We simply forgot to look for what was always present, always waiting, always loving us home.